When you go into military service, you're all of a sudden with people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be with, interacting with civilians in a way of you're not a civilian anymore. I'm bringing up these points to highlight you need to understand how to interact with people, how to have empathy with others, coming from, different perspectives and in extremely stressful environments. If you're able to leverage those experiences, translate them into civilian life, then it works super well. If you can imagine on a construction site where it's a hectic environment, a major selling point to developers as to why they should be license holders, because, hey, this is your property that you're paying for. You should own this data. It'll become an asset very quickly, both on the administrative side, because you could copy and paste this information across your project. So time reduction gets compounded over the amount that you use the product. This is going to become a true asset to be able to tell you, hey, your next project based on your asset class and zip code should cost you XYZ for everything.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Design Development, your hub to learn direct from top performers in real estate development, design, and construction. I'm your host, Renz Hayes, founding partner of H&O Lifelong Learner, and I am personally obsessed with high-powered organizations and the leaders that guide them. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for joining us. And if you're a returning listener, can't thank you enough. Let's go. We have an exciting episode for you today. My guest is Adam Stark. He's the co-founder of Jet.Build. He's one hell of an entrepreneur. I love his story. Former Special Forces veteran. He's a certified yoga instructor. He was a commercial real estate developer managing high-rise projects in downtown New York. And he came to be frustrated with how much time he was wasting doing administrative work and that he didn't really see a present-day software solution to help solve the problem. So he and his co-founder, they started solving the problem on their own. Truth be told, 3 years later, they realized they have a product that's going to help other people. And that turned into Jet.Build. So this is an end-to-end software solution, commercial real estate developer, and all key stakeholders, the design team, the contractor, the specialty subcontractors, you name it. I'm not going to sit here and try to explain all the values. You're going to have to tune into the episode, but without further ado, let's get to my conversation with Adam Stark. Please join me in welcoming Adam Stark. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Renz, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. Excited for this conversation.
You and I had a call, got to know each other a little bit before jumping on the podcast, and I'm really excited to introduce you to everybody. For those that don't know you, Adam, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what Jet.Build is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we're going to dive into a lot of angles here. But to begin, answering that, what Jet.Build is about, my co-founder Joseph and I actually know each other from childhood. Then we ended up in the same enlistment in the Israeli military. Then we both end up starting our professional careers working for real estate developers in New York City in very hands-on roles. So we spent many years on construction job sites. And right away when we started our career, right, we recognized the amount of time that we were wasting with all of your typical administrative type tasks across the stakeholders, right? And that's when we said, all right, there's got to be a better way to resolve for this time waste. And that's really the inception of Jet on a very kind of macro basis. As we built out a product, a solution management software that was supporting our role as site operators, as administrators, coming from the developer's perspective, connecting all stakeholders.
The software options, when you're in this development role, the software options out there didn't quite solve your administrative and what you viewed as time wasting.
Yeah, great question. So I always laugh at this because I'll say, before we spent all of our free time, right, building out a product for ourselves, is of course we went to the market. We recognized the incumbent legacy players that existed. And the friction that we faced, and these are friction points I hear on a daily basis. So the friction that we faced was first and foremost price point and pricing model. So as we were vetting alternative solutions to support our operations, we were rejected from the companies we were working for. Two different companies, similar companies, but different. We were rejected because of the pricing models, and then also because of the difficulty in understanding the back end of the product. So for those reasons, we were left with no solution, and that's when we started to create one for ourselves.
If I think of construction software, and let's say the horse that comes to mind is Procore, and even as a structural engineer, as a subcontractor, I've been involved in that software a number of different ways. And I imagine there's some visibility from the developer side too, but
Mhm.
it's really geared towards the construction side. And you're saying that doesn't necessarily have usability for the owner in the way that you need it to do your job and oversee it from a developer perspective?
So a difficulty that I see in, I'll call it general perspectives, right? I'm saying that plural in terms of all of the stakeholders, as you mentioned, a sub, a GC, a design team,
Hmm.
developer. You go as far as the lender, expediter. So you can look at all of these stakeholders. All of us need to collaborate to create this project, right? So what we were seeing is either it be a GC coming on the project with a specific product, a sub coming on the project with a specific product, and then there's this disconnect or this friction in regard to adoption across stakeholders. So that's when we kind of conceived of this thought process thought process of saying, hey, if you're the developer, I mean, there's a few angles to look at here, but
Hmm.
first and foremost, if you're the developer, why don't you issue a product that you could essentially mandate for all of your stakeholders that you are hiring to use as a single
Hmm.
source, right? So that would be
Sure.
first and foremost. Include the contracting features, the contracting solutions. And then, in addition to that, bridge the gap between what the developer needs to see, regardless of if they're hands on or hands off, and
Hmm.
create truly an end-to-end solution. And what I mean by that is typically, reporting features. It'll be data management features. It'll be payment application, budget, bid management features. All of these elements that could wrap, your draw packages, your payment application packages, so that the developer can leverage that to their, party that they're answering to, i.e., your lender, your
Yeah.
banks, et cetera.
When I think of software, let's say accounting software, I feel like every
Mm-hmm.
industry software starts in accounting. They're
Sure.
always accounting focused, and then the other things get bolted on as
Mm-hmm.
features, but aren't really the core use of the software. So they can be clunky and frustrating. And what I'm hearing here is there's no software out there that's really just geared towards the developer that does the things that they need to do well. So this software is first facing the developer, but also is supporting and creates that end-to-end solution.
That that's a great call out. So I would suggest that we're really focused equally on the developer perspective as well as the contracting teams.
Okay.
And to your point of how products maybe that you've seen were built initially on the accounting side, we actually started with your RFI submittal workflow and document management, and we moved on to file management, drawing management. So really site operation needs. And the reason for that is we were seeing, coming on job sites from the developer's perspective as well, we were seeing that we were spending our time reminding all of the stakeholders between contracting teams, design teams, back and forth, ourselves as giving approvals to changes. We were seeing this disconnect, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
in starting with your RFI and submittal workflow and management, we recognized that we were bridging those gaps across the different companies, across the different stakeholders. So, we actually started really on what I would consider as your contracting day to day management tool solution.
You mentioned price as a big hurdle, especially
Mm-hmm.
from the development side. When I took a look at Jet.Build, you have a free pricing model
Mm-hmm.
for people to get a feel. So we're going to dive more into the features and the value that is Jet.Build. But for those interested, you can go to jet.build and check out the free version and start playing around yourself.
Totally.
Big part of design development is the journey of the founder to share your story so that we can all see parallels and learn from your experience. You have a very unique background, and I want to dive in. So, first, Special Forces veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that experience and really the kind of values or the habits that left you with that have propelled you in your career.
Yeah, totally. Funny enough, I did my military service before my undergraduate degree, and then undergraduate degree, then professional, career followed, right? So well
Hmm.
before I started in construction and development, and I was really quickly understanding so many parallels between my service and my professional career. And I'll stick to a few kind of touch points on that front. First and foremost, the thing that stood out most is when you go into military service, you're all of a sudden with people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be with. You're all of a sudden interacting with
Mhm.
civilians in a way of, you're not a civilian anymore. So I'm bringing up these points to highlight, quickly you need to understand how to interact with people. You need to understand how to have empathy with others, coming from, different perspectives, different, I'll call it hierarchy for lack of a better word, and in extremely stressful environments, right? Like to an extreme. So
Sure.
if you're able to leverage those experiences and translate them into civilian life, then it works super well if you can imagine on a construction site where it's a hectic environment. At the same time, it's not a war zone. Uh,
Yes.
all right, so
Not quite
but
as hectic. Yeah.
right, exactly, not quite as hectic. Nonetheless, it is hectic. Nonetheless, you are dealing with dozens of different, companies, people, roles, etc. So that kind of translation that I was able to recognize and leverage was really fun for me. Honestly, it was fun for me to see my efforts from my military career be
Mhm.
useful in the professional setting beyond that, but is also very translatable and recognizably so for me, was equipment, right? So you got to be able to manage equipment in the military. You got to be able to have your checklists, understand what's working well, when the last time you did maintenance on it, so on and
Mhm.
so forth. So in the same kind of a capacity for, building a property, right, is you need to understand equipment, you need to understand workforce, and you need to bridge those kind of logistic heavy elements to collaborating with other people.
I certainly have an admiration for those who served. I personally haven't served in the military. One thing that really sticks out to me is their focus on routine and habits. And I personally have come to appreciate the importance of a routine and even more so our daily habits, the things that we identify as most important, making them small, making them painless and super make them hard not to do your daily habits. And those things
Totally.
compound over time. Do you feel that you did you have a sense of routine and good daily habits leading into it, or is that a skill that you built while in the military?
Great question. And before even answering it right away, as I'll jump to like today, I'll call it. I have a
Hmm.
routine in the morning that I just simply cannot miss. It is impossible for me to miss just because of so many years of just doing it day in, day out, that it
Hmm.
is essential to my day. So it's great, great segue.
Perfect. Yeah.
Going back to having started, I think really my military career is what ingrained that into me. It embedded that sense of routine and the necessity for it, at least for me. And I would recommend it for others. Prior to starting, I was definitely very driven to get to where I got to serving in special forces. So I did do a lot of, just online research, spoke to people who had experience before me, understood what it took in terms of dedication toward creating a routine per se, but I don't think I had that mindset yet at the time prior to starting.
There could be a perspective of the big, tough, strong-willed military person, and you went from that environment and you somehow found yourself becoming a certified yoga instructor.
Yeah,
Two very different perspectives. And for those that are unfamiliar with the yoga certification process, my wife had actually looked into it. And I think it's something like 500 or more hours of training to get this certification. It is a commitment. It scared me
totally.
just being married to somebody that wanted to do it. So, what led you down that path? How did you get into yoga? And what has it done for you?
Great question. So, what's really interesting about doing something like infantry, right? So, if you're doing something that's super physically intensive, it actually is, I would argue, more mentally intensive. So, what I mean by that is you can be in whatever shape you think you're in. Real quick, you'll understand that it's a mental game, meaning without the mental fortitude to continue, or the intention to finish, or the desire to do what you're doing in training to get to whatever unit battalion that you're trying to be accepted into, you're not going to get very far without that
Well
ability
said.
to, yeah, mentally get there. Um, so with that said, When I finished the military, like many others, very kind of hard-headed type mindset, um, very brute force like mentality. Uh, at the same time, finished with a lot of injuries, pretty much everyone.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Yeah,
was
it takes
trying
a
to
toll
figure
on your body, I'm sure.
totally, yeah, totally. And I was trying to figure out ways to resolve for that. So, I tried um, uh, I'm taking a blank on that. Tried the professional route in terms of resolving injuries, physical therapy. Wow, sorry,
Hmm.
drew a blank there.
No
So I was
problem.
trying physical therapy for a while. It was helping, but not so much. Slowly but surely, I was recognizing that I needed to create more mobility and space in
Hmm.
my body to free up the tensions that I was creating, which was a cause of both psychological tension and also just physical injuries and tension that, was an outcome of military service. Um, and, up front, it was very hard to commit to because uh, it being yoga, because it's such a different dynamic from what I'm used to, right? I'm used to saying, oh, here's a weight or here's a rep count. I'm just
Hmm.
gonna brute force push through. I'm gonna get it. I don't care what anyone says or thinks. Here's a
Yep.
pace, right? Running. Here's a
Yeah.
pace. I'm gonna get it. I don't care. With yoga, it's almost the complete opposite, and that challenge was really intriguing to me once I was able to recognize it. And that being said, is mobility doesn't come from brute strength. It comes from breath work. It comes from patience. There's no linearity to it, right? So if you do 10 push-ups for a week, on day 8 or 9, you should expect to be able to do 12. With yoga, with mobility, flexibility, creating space, in your body, there is none of that linearity. I mean, one day you could, for whatever reason, be super mobile, maybe because you slept well. The next day you could feel yourself having half of that mobility in just your right arm versus your
Hmm.
left, or your right leg versus your left. So it's this amazing challenge that really allowed me to dive into it more once I created patience around the concept.
Yeah, it takes a ton of patience. My my path is different, but there's some similarities. Lifelong athlete, very much a brute force type of person. I was unaware, uneducated about how proper body movements should happen, and
Mhm.
like the human body is just like the ultimate adaptation machine. Like if you can't
Totally.
put your arm above your shoulder, like you just other muscles pick up the slack and figures it out, and other
Totally.
things tighten so that it holds your joint together. And you we walk around ignorant to
Mhm.
those compromises we're taking in our body, and then 10, 20 years goes by of brute force, and you find that you're in a lot of pain. And I ultimately I herniated a disc in my lower back, and my lumbar
Mhm.
spine's a mess. But I found myself going down a similar journey in trying to it's similar to yoga. I do some yoga moves, but it's like functional body movement,
Mhm.
and a lot of like trying to create space and proper mobility and engaging the right muscles. You mentioned breath work.
Mhm.
I didn't do breath work once in my entire career as an athlete or any of that, and I have come to find it like the most important thing that I do every day during my
Totally.
workout. Even if I most of my workouts are probably 15, 20 minutes, but I do it every morning, and the
Mhm.
entire time includes breath work.
Amazing.
It's like step one, and that has been a change for me.
Totally.
Meditation and mindfulness, did that come from you found yourself in yoga kind of out of necessity, it seems similar to my journey. Did that then lead you to value and see the value in meditation? And that's what, because I think you even launched some businesses around meditation, the entrepreneur in you. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it was really the same timing when, I was recognizing a necessity to change what I was doing to resolve for those aches and pains that I was, experiencing, not wanting for that to compound over time to a point where I would, be older and not be able to resolve for it. So, it was all in the same kind of dive into wellness, as I like to call it. And in that deep dive into wellness, came my 500-hour certification, came my certification in mindfulness and meditation.
Hmm.
And that's when I also launched a book on my practice.
Very cool. And what was the title of the book?
So the book is called Shalosh, which is the Hebrew word for the number three, and that stands for the three pillars to which I kind of practice wellness, being mental wellness, physical fitness, and nutrition.
The older I get, the more I value those types of perspectives and lessen the nutrition, the fitness, the wellness, the mental health piece.
Hmm.
I think you need to create time every day to do those. So I applaud you for that. Your experience in the real estate development world,
Hmm.
meditation, mindfulness, wellness, special forces veteran. You find yourself in New York City working in commercial real estate. Tell us about where you worked and the type of projects you got to work on.
Totally. Most of my projects actually happen to be hotels, which was really interesting because um, different from a office space or residential. It really was encompassing, this end-to-end build and fit out, right? So you have to really complete every single room, every single unit in the property. Going one step back before that, the way I got into the space, real estate development, really just luck, time, and place. I finished my undergraduate degree. Um, Fell in, this opportunity just happened when I finished. I was intrigued by starting this route because I love creating tangible outcomes. I thought that was really neat. I
Hmm.
thought just working with a lot of people like we were talking about before, right? A lot of different companies. I thought that would be neat. So I just dove in. I started and uh, I really loved it. So like I was mentioning just a moment ago, sorry for jumping around here. Yeah, most of the properties I was building and renovating were hotels. However, I did a bunch of office and residential as well.
Very nice. And in a sense of scale, small boutique hotels, larger hotels, like how many keys?
Yeah, they're all high rise, so anywhere between 100 keys to I don't know, a few hundred.
Very cool. That's exciting work. And you mentioned the appreciation for building or creating something tangible. Like
Totally.
anybody in the real estate or in construction or design world, it's hard to drive by these buildings and not point to them, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's a sense of accomplishment every time you see a building that you worked on.
Totally.
Your role, you shared that you were on site. It seems, were you upfront in the acquisition, the equity and debt side? Did you primarily focus on project execution? Like what roles did you play in this real estate world?
Yeah, great question. So it's really from once a project was in hand, and what I mean by that, it was after the financing side of it.
Yep.
Then I would bring stakeholders together, uh, run through project budgets, and then through execution into handoff.
Got it. And when you say stakeholders, is that the design and the construction team? Who are the
Correct.
stakeholders? Got
Correct.
it.
Yeah, design and construction teams. Correct.
All right, let's go through a tangible example, your experience in commercial real estate, these administrative
Mhm.
tasks that you would have to do that became the pain point. If you could give us a few examples of those administrative tasks that you've now automated or streamlined using Jet.Build, like what were those things and about how much of your week do you think you could have saved with your new software?
Oh man, how much of my week? I don't even want to know. An entire week. I would be focused on all, I don't know, actionable or proactive management if I had a fully up and running jet
So,
back
in
in
your time managing as a developer, overseeing construction and
yeah.
managing the design and construction team, Jet.Build software would sometimes open up an entire week of your time.
Yeah, I feel really confident in that. I mean, and I'll go through examples of why I feel so confident.
Love it.
Coming from the developer perspective, where Jet starts to be relevant, you had mentioned before the accounting side. So in this instance, that would be correct, where it would start its relevance on the accounting
Mhm.
elements like scope of work creation. So we have AI automation for scope of work now. Then it can go into bid management, bid leveling, which is all automated once you enter the inputs. Then you go into overall budget management. So once you have that sorted, you have your uh, architect on board with some drawings, you bring on your GC, you get those budgets sorted, you allow for those stakeholders to manage their own budgets, so specific to them, with
Mhm.
permissions for them to see their budget in particular.
Mhm.
So that's the first kind of steps of automation, right? So now you're allowing for uh, each stakeholder to manage their budget, and for you as the developer or the license holder to have an oversight of these budgets without needing to pull from every single party and create a static Excel file, right? So that would
Uh,
be the example of massive amounts of time saving and automation upfront.
mhm.
So that's on that, like, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
You do see a lot of pro formas in Excel. So is this
totally.
something even before we're executing a construction product? Are you building a pro forma right in Jet.Build
Correct,
from the start?
correct,
That's really nice.
correct. And once you build that and you lock in your budgets, the corresponding payment applications uh, are issued automatically with that same permission control. So your GC is going to see their budget and only theirs. Your architect's going to see theirs and only theirs, so on and so forth. And you could go as macro as you want. You could get every single subcontractor, their own access if you wanted. Uh,
Hmm.
so upfront on that pre-con element, you already got your automations occurring on bid management and your budgets in general.
Hmm.
Now, once the architect starts issuing your drawings, so now we're going to, our drawing tools, we're leaning into potentially permit management already, like we have, which is also going to be creating automations in terms of one, you issue out responsibilities to the relevant parties. Two, automated email reminders are going to occur prior to expiration and
Hmm.
continuously until you update it. So I'm touching on another administrative thing, right? So while you're trying to manage budgets and people responding to responsibilities, who's on site, payment apps, etc., it's so easy to forget permits. It's so easy to forget insurance, and remind people accordingly. So we're covering both of those angles as well on that administrative headspace, right? Administrative topic. So
There's
ensure
already like a framework to follow for the things
correct.
that need to happen.
Correct, exactly, exactly.
Right.
So once you have those initial inputs, the administrative elements are going to be automated.
Hey everyone, quick break from the episode. If you're enjoying today's episode, please send this to a friend, like, share, comment, subscribe. It's the only way we're going to help more people. Let's get back to the show. As I think through this software and the data that's going into it, I imagine there's a secondary benefit that could even be larger than the administrative
Totally.
benefit is the collective data that you
Correct.
gain, and that gives you better intelligence for the next development. So if you have 10, 20, 30, 40 developments in this software, you start to
Exactly.
learn from those insights without the administrative work of organizing it yourself.
Yeah, I laughed because you caught the kicker to all of this already up front. Off of two, three solutions out of the dozens that we have,
Hmm.
and that's also a selling point, a major selling point to developers as to why they should be, license holders. Because hey,
Hmm.
you're paying for stakeholders. This is your property that you're paying for. You should own this data. And guess what data will do for you, right? It'll become an asset very quickly,
Yes.
both on the administrative side because you could copy and paste this information across your project. So time reduction gets compounded over the amount that you use the product. But then on a more macro scale, exactly as you just pointed out, this is going to become a true asset to be able to tell you, hey, your next project based on your asset class and zip code should cost you
Hmm.
XYZ for everything, right? From permits to insurance, the budgets, to each sub, etc. As well as schedule. It should cause XYZ schedule based on all of the information that we have, including Gantt chart scheduling.
Could you talk a little bit about the pricing model? That was a hurdle for developers in your experience.
Totally
And if I think of, let's say, the construction-based software, it's usually based on volume of how large your contracts are. It's a function of that or number of
correct.
users. How is your pricing model?
Totally. So as you already pointed out, right, we have a free version. So we're doing a
Mhm.
freemium model. Typically, the free version is being used by existing clients who are adding pipeline projects, so essentially potential projects, right? Uh, which is going to be free, and it gives you access to our drawing module, which we didn't even get to on our example, that allows you to do overlays, at mentions, markups, tons and tons of features. You could link them to. Sorry, the linking will actually would not be free, so I'm not going to mention that. You can,
That's okay.
yeah. So you got your drawing module, so you got your drawing basics. You add your users and groups, your meeting minutes, which is a great tool that you can add actionable items to, uh, and permit management and task management. So that'll all be in your free module for typically pipeline. If you want to mess around and play with it, by all means, go ahead. And then once you're ready to activate for your kind of new user, I'll call it, on a single project basis, you'll see it's on our website, really off the shelf type of thing. You get the entire product, unlimited users and groups. There's no hidden anything. That's 6K for the year. And then beyond that, our pricing model will depend on a few factors. One, of course, being how many projects, so how many licenses do you want? Two is what is a very broad range of your project size so that we could understand bandwidth. And I say
Hmm.
range in particular because we're not taking a percentage or a value number off of the size of your project. Rather, it's just a bandwidth calculation.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much it. We'll price to the scale of your organization. So what that means is dissimilar to what exists in the market is the more you use Jet, the better pricing you'll receive.
I learned to look at pricing of software differently. I used to look at software and be like, this thing's already created. I'm just another user. How am I going to pay 100 or 200 or $1,000 a month for this software? Like
Mhm.
that I am just getting like, I'm getting the hat pulled over my eyes. I
Yeah,
don't see what's
yeah.
going on. I'm paying way too much. And I forget who shared this insight with me, but it's to think of the opportunity cost, or like how many people don't you have to hire? Like how many people will this
Totally.
software replace, or how more effective, how many hours of time does it save my team? And then you start to add up all those hours, and all of a sudden you look at something that costs 100, 200, $1,000 a month, and the financials very quickly make sense. You're getting a really good ROI
Mhm.
just in time savings alone. And
Totally.
that was a big aha for me because as somebody that doesn't come from a technology background, I'm not in the tech world. It probably sounds crazy to people that live in the software world. They're like, of course, shaking the screen or yelling at me. But not coming from a software background, like
Sure.
it was a hurdle for me to get over the cost. I was like, I can't believe how expensive software is,
Yeah,
but it truly is that valuable.
totally. What we say, clients, potential clients, is each individual gets to do exponentially more now with the product. And that's kind of what you were asking and touching on, and what I responded to in the sense that having Jet up front, the more you use it, you'll see the ability to focus almost purely on proactive decision making because of all of the automations that are occurring. So every
Yeah.
individual gets to just do exponentially more for your company.
Let's talk about the other stakeholders, the
Hmm.
general contractor, right? Like they have there's a lot of softwares competing in this space already for the contractor.
Hmm.
Like what benefits do they have in using Jet.Build?
Totally. So, what we didn't get to, we touched on some of the
Yep.
collaboration elements like the drawing module or permit management or
Yep.
meeting minutes I touched on briefly, as well as the accounting elements, right? Like the budget management, bid management, payment apps, et cetera.
Which going
So
back
on,
to like the administrative stuff, like
right,
that's sharing of documentation and in coordination amongst stakeholders, which is
totally.
a valuable asset.
Totally. And then on the contractor side, on the operations, we're doing everything from submittal management, RFI management. Submittal's linked to your spec book. RFI is linked to your drawing sheets. Punch lists, which link to your drawing sheets as well. Daily
Hmm.
reports, Gantt chart scheduling. Really, all of the features that all of these other incumbent products have. The difference and the differentiator that we're providing the market, one is you get a new tech stack, right? So what does that mean? Is if you could imagine using your computer from the early 2000s or your smartphone from the early 2000s and comparing that to today, I mean,
Hmm.
that's what you're going to see immediately once you use a product is just a completely redefined UI, UX, user interface, user experience that allows you to really do everything I just said in 3 clicks. I mean, I have this LinkedIn post going every so often where I do 3 clicks, 3 click command with Jet.Build. And it's just so
Yep.
many examples of functionality that you could produce in literally 3 clicks. And that's to say the intuitive simplicity of our product, the simplicity in which we built the product. So those are two major distinctive differentiators. And then the
Yep.
last, like we've touched on before, is you're just gonna save point blank on your budget, right? So opens you up for other products. If it's AI safety, if it's better concrete pouring accuracy,
Mhm.
and all of these things could plug into Jet as your central command, and then again, truly giving you the ability to manage data as an asset because you're plugging them all into one central hub while allowing you for that budget space to get those other products.
I'll try to reiterate this from an outside
Do
perspective.
it.
So as a contractor, you're giving them all of their immediate needs, the drawings, the submittals, the meeting minutes, the markup. You can tag people that are responsible so you can assign tasks, that sort of thing in there. The differentiator is none of the other solutions out there actually support their client, which is the owner developer. So this better provides more value to their client
Correct.
and user interface, which at face value, some people might think like, all right, yeah, user interface is no different. But to me, a lot of the antiquated software out there, the user interface is the biggest pain point. We
Correct.
have software that's like critical to our operations, and I sign in there, and when it just freezes for 3 seconds for me to get to the next screen, or I have to go through more than 3 clicks to get somewhere, I'm already like frustrated and my
Hmm.
mind's elsewhere. Like I don't
Totally.
have that attention span, for better
Totally.
or
Yeah.
worse. But and then you lose productivity, you lose focus,
Right.
and user experience to me of a software has become more and more of a premium.
Absolutely. And going back to, the founder story of the two reasons why, Jet ended up being created is we got rejected on the price point as well as the usability of the product, right? So that
Hmm.
was kind of the inception of Jet is all right, we got to fix the usability of these products. I always make the little dig where alternative products will, have this certification program. Well, if you're getting a certification to use what should be like your smartphone, for example, then it's not so smart. So
Hmm.
Jet doesn't have a certification program. You use a smartphone, you'll know how to use Jet. And that's the point of it, right? You'll know how to manage a workflow. You'll know how to create a budget. It's all so simple. It is also all essential and all a necessity.
Yeah, I think high quality software really is intuitive when you use it. You don't need
Totally.
to like go through training. It's something that you can really figure out on your own. Talk about the subcontractors. There's
Hmm.
a lot of them on every single job. Does this software provide them value directly, even if a general contractor and owner is not using it? I'll share from my experience. My
Hmm.
background is in the structural steel environment, so I looked at all kinds of software to help manage shop drawings, submittals, and those sort of things. And
Hmm.
oftentimes you're defaulting to whatever the general contractor on the job is using, but you
Right.
still have to manage all of this stuff internally. And I found the software solutions to be extremely clunky and frustrating to where
Right.
we just literally used folders on our computer to
Right.
manage and shift drawings around. So, what kind of benefits does a subcontractor have?
That's a great question, and this is a conversation piece that I'm always intrigued by. So I could imagine, I don't come from a
Hmm.
subcontractor in terms of professional background, so I can't say or no, and just tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Is I would imagine, a subcontractor needs to build a budget, they need to build a schedule internally, they need to do their own, like you said, drawing markups, whether
Hmm.
it be submittal, et cetera, and then push it external, right? Push all this stuff external. So I would imagine, I mean, there's a use case for really any company who's doing all of these, operational functions. What I do hear and what I definitely understand, as you pointed out, is subcontractors typically will be defaulted to use the general product of the project.
Hmm.
So I understand that exists too, and knowing that those two dynamics, are happening, I'm not sure if necessarily a solution, but very happy to explore if there is, really a relevant use case for a subcontractor.
Yeah, and so because you mentioned specialty contractors, and maybe that's different than what I'm thinking of, because I think it's very prudent of you to be forward. Like this isn't necessarily focused on one subcontractor and solving their direct problem.
Mhm.
It's solving a problem kind of end to end, right? So it's not going to necessarily do everything a subcontractor needs.
Yeah, so it's kind of I would say it's a depending on use case, if a subcontractor has a significant enough internal operation, then I think it's a no-brainer. I could
No
be wrong.
brainer.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think with size, it becomes more of an obvious solution for a subcontractor. Um, what we've done, and kind of a same topic, different topic, what we've done for our product to support subcontractors who, of course, don't need to see the entirety of a product because it's irrelevant to them, different companies, different, uh, you know, accountability, is we have permissions where, if a plumber's on a job, if a steel worker's on a job, they'll see specifically what's relevant to them. So when they log into the product for a project they're working on, they'll see, just what they need to see rather than an entire project admin portal, which is, doesn't matter for them.
Yeah, again, coming back to that user interface and how
Totally,
critical it is. So if you can get rid of the noise, it's much easier to focus on what's important.
totally.
I want to get to two more things, and some of this is out of sequence. I want to get to some like who's using the software now,
Hmm.
like some testimonials or some wins in there. But I meant to get into it. Launching of Jet.Build.
Hmm.
Entrepreneur, you've done the wellness practice, the certification, clearly an entrepreneur at heart. Tell us about how you launched Jet.Build, and kind of what got this going. Like how did you
Totally.
start?
So, I think a little bit unique and luck, and thanks to my co-founder Joseph just being an absolute monster. We were building this out since 2017. The inception of Jet was really to create a solution for ourselves, right, as site
Mhm.
operators. So the inception of it was to solve a problem that we were facing rather than let's create a business. So I think
Mhm.
that's a pretty unique angle to speak to for anyone to kind of absorb for themselves and use
Solve a
however makes
problem.
sense for them. Yeah, solve a problem for yourself, see how that goes, and then go from there. So
Mhm.
looking back in hindsight, that's a great methodology. Um, so that's what we were doing. We were building out the solution, like I mentioned in that beginning story, right? We immediately
Yeah,
recognized the time savings that we were experiencing. So then we
sure.
just continued to add products or
And
add
you're doing
solutions
this
to our
on
product.
top of your full-time job. This is,
Right,
like you said, your free time, right?
right. Yeah, totally, totally.
And what was the aha moment when you're like, this is a business, this is a product that
Yeah,
can
yeah,
help
yeah.
some people.
Yeah, exactly. So it took I'll call it probably 2, 3 years plus minus when that aha moment occurred, and we look at the product and thought to ourselves, oh, shit, we just made a end-to-end solution here. Let's focus on this. It's clearly working for our projects. It's clearly working for stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
Let's get some more external parties on board. So that's when we onboarded some builders in our network who still
Hmm.
build with us today, which is really cool. Um, so with their feedback, with their use, we were able to refine it a little bit further. So that's bringing us from like around 2020 plus minus to about 2022,
Hmm.
where we were past this beta phase, we were past this testing phase,
And
in
you're
a
still
sense.
working full time during this
Yeah,
period, right?
yeah,
So you
exactly.
have a job and you built the software, you got customers, or you got
Right,
people to at least use your software,
correct.
paying or unpaid, but you got them to test it, which then helps you improve.
Exactly, exactly. So that was the journey of Jet, and then once that occurred, past year and a half or so ago, that's when we really realized that okay, this is a serious product, this is a serious solution. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, we've checked those boxes for ourselves. Let's focus on this full time, and that's when we went to raise capital, and here we are today.
Here you are today. Well, I,
Yeah.
I love the story. I applaud you. And think there's a lesson that you talk about the overnight successes, right? Or the people that
Right.
have it made. And what they don't always see or hear about is the 5 years
Yeah,
of building an idea and a product to bring to market, right? Like you're putting in the effort, seeing a problem, solving a problem, and it turned into a really cool opportunity.
totally.
Now, was this the first time you went to raise capital? Was it a hard decision to raise capital? Like, tell us about what was going through your mind.
Yeah, so I prior to starting with Jet, really in the heart of COVID, I made this semi career shift where I was working for another company. So it went from G Holdings to this company called Avo, where I was still managing real estate for them. It was a startup. I was chief of staff there, so really nice kind of hands or involvement in all of back end business operations. And why I bring that up in particular is I supported a few fundraising rounds with that company, and understood what it meant to grow, for a company. So that really supported in terms of taking that experience, leveraging it when we decided to really focus on Jet,
Hmm.
and raise capital. The reason for wanting to raise is being able to focus full time without external pressures. So if you have the means to focus on a product or business full time without raising external capital, then hats off to you and definitely go for it. You might as well try.
Hmm.
However, that of course is a personal financial hit to do that,
For
which
sure.
is why people will typically fundraise to be able to start and grow a business with capital at hand to do things like hire people, market, build out different solutions, etc.
It's the type of business too. Not every business to start requires capital. The
Correct.
challenge in software, at which you can attest to, you built it on the side for 5 years. Now you're starting to get customers, but we're talking about the licensing fees that are annual. You need a lot of customers to
Hmm.
build the revenue to sustain the cost to actually build the software,
Correct.
which means like the financial model is really upside down when you first start,
Totally.
and the seed capital or the fundraising gets you to profitability. That's really the goal, right? And maybe there's an exit in the future. That's totally different conversation, but you really need seed money. So whether it's yours or somebody else's, it costs money to build a software company before it ever becomes profitable, and it's not an immediate road.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You hit it on the head. Something that's unique in what we've done also, and again, shout out to Joseph, co-founder that truly built the ins and outs of the product is, when we came to market, we had what was more than just a skeleton. I mean, it was an operating product.
Yeah.
Now I'm very confident in saying that we're pushing the market in terms of robust and intuitive feature set. But a
Yeah.
year and a half ago, when we raised capital and we focused full time, it was very much a fully operational product. It was already working on a
Great.
few hundred million in construction value on it. So that gave us a leg up in terms of, our point zero essentially, you
Hmm.
know, point
I
zero
have no
being
doubt.
once we raised capital, it was actually, further along the road than I guess a typical, story of a software.
And like you said, you already had contractors using your
Correct.
software, giving feedback. So you more or less were going with product market fit in a sense, or
Right.
right on the edge of product market fit anyway. So
Exactly.
kudos to you guys. Could you share some wins from a developer, GC, an end user of this product, and like the value they've gotten from it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest two driving data points that we see, and it's amazing to see, is our RFI and submittal on time return rates. Those are so close to 100%. I mean, they're at like 97, they fluctuate between 97% and 98%. So, what that means and what we're seeing out of our users right now, we have 1,000 users and just over 3 billion in construction value operating on the product actively. So what that means, right, is projects are finding efficiency and productivity to them because of the automations that we've implemented, because of the simplicity that we've implemented, And our clients are now able to focus on, like I keep mentioning, like the proactive things rather than scrambling, to resolve a expired insurance or resolve an expired permit, right? Because all of these administrative tasks are automated. Another two kind of wins that are really awesome and actually just happened last week. Two different types of companies entirely. One actually a government entity, one a private company, both coming from incumbent alternative products. Both feedback as they started with Jet.Build were along the lines of more robust, yet more intuitive, cleaner product, cleaner dashboard, and that really means a lot to us. Especially because, and I'll end with this as a highlight of what we're doing here at Jet, is we'll take client feedback extremely seriously, and we'll even provide actual timelines for implementation. So we're rapidly implementing feature feedback, and as a result, we're providing the collective client base best practices, right? They get to experience best practices of how people are operating, how businesses are operating.
Closing questions for today.
Mm-hmm.
What's a message you want to leave with your audience about Jet.Build, or where are you going in the next few years? What's the vision?
The vision is that data play that we're talking about. It's to say, once we have sufficient data, once you have sufficient data as a client, you're going to be able to truly leverage that as a new asset class for your business, right? You're going to be able to understand what projects should cost, at what schedule. You're going to be able to understand performance. You're going to be able to have automations at a new level, really, than you had before, simply because of new technology and what that will provide you.
Top book or podcast you'd recommend?
So I'm a big audiobook person, and I just
Same.
finished. Awesome. I just finished this book called The Book of Joy, which is narrated by and written by the Dalai Lama and Archbishop. And it is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend the audiobook version because, like I just said, they're literally narrating it. And it is just an amazing level of perspective and learnings that you gain from these two individuals that are just incredible stories, incredible headspace that they live in, and what they've been able to accomplish in their life story. So highly recommend that book.
I love that recommendation. I'll be checking that one out.
Awesome.
And best advice for emerging leaders?
Best advice, I'll always and continue saying this, is get on LinkedIn, create a personal brand for yourself, figure out what you like to talk about, what you like to think about, and start getting active. It's really, really easy. Once you get started, once you get rolling on that front, you're going to realize how easy it is. So I can't recommend that anymore.
I love that advice. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. If you start building a personal brand and getting known in your industry,
Totally.
You'll never be without opportunity, right?
Totally.
Adam, thank you so much. I'm really excited for Jet.Build. I know I'll be passing that along to a lot of the people that we work with. I wish you and your partner nothing but the best.
Renz, appreciate you, man. This was a great conversation. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. Real quick before you leave for the day, if we could ask one favor, if you enjoyed today's conversation, if you're enjoying all the conversations on design development, please share this with someone that you think will benefit from it. Our goal is to help as many people in the design, development, and construction industries. And with your help, I think we can spread the word and help more people. Thanks for tuning in, and can't wait to hear from you next time.